Hi, it's Teresa from Dodge Nature Center, and time for another Nature to Go. So, how did you do your first week back on daylight saving time? Yeah, I know for me it was kind of hard getting up when it was still dark out. And that got me to thinking about, does daylight saving time have any kind of impact on wild animals, the wild things that are out in nature? And in my research, what I found out is that really, no. Which makes perfect sense, because when we say it's a particular time, when we're looking at a clock or a watch and it says it's a particular time, that's something that we as humans have created. In the natural world, the plants and animals, they're responding to when the sun comes up and when the sun goes down, regardless of what number we as humans have put on what time that is. What does matter to the animals and to the plants is how much light they are getting at a particular time of year. These are circadian rhythms that in the 24-hour time block that they experience, how much light and how much darkness are they getting as they go through the year. And why this matters is because for a lot of those organisms, the light and the darkness is what determines when they're going to migrate, if they're going to hibernate, when they're going to reproduce, when they flower. What they do in a given day is determined by how much light and then subsequently how much darkness they are experiencing. So take something like monarchs. As long as there's more than 14 hours of daylight, what happens to their bodies is that they will want to mate. But once daylight drops below 14 hours, chemical signals get triggered that tell them to migrate instead. Certain bird behaviors are also triggered by the amount of light they're experiencing. So in January, often we'll start hearing birds like chickadees and cardinals starting to sing their spring songs. It's not anywhere close to being spring, but the amount of daylight they're receiving triggers them to start singing those songs. But it's not just animals that are affected by the amount of daylight. It's plants too. Back in the 1930s, a couple of scientists were trying to figure out how plants knew when to flower. And what they figured out is that it's by how much darkness certain plants have. Now, some plants want a short amount of darkness, like maybe less than 8 hours in a night. Other plants want a lot more darkness, like 16 hours of darkness. And if that amount of time is interrupted by even like 1 minute of light, it resets the plant and it won't bloom. Some plants are called long day plants, but what that means is they are able to bloom with having a short night. And those are things like asters and coneflowers, California poppies, but it includes vegetables like lettuce and spinach and potatoes. Then there are the plants that are short day plants, meaning they need a long night. And those would be things like mums and poinsettias and your Christmas cactuses. And then there's a third category. There are some plants that really it doesn't affect them what the day length is. So those are called day neutral plants. And those are things like tomatoes and corn and cucumbers and strawberries. So the natural world isn't concerned with if it's daylight saving time, central time, what time zone you're in. They're not really worried about that. They are very responsive to what's going on with the amount of light and darkness in their world as one of the main triggers that drives what their lives are like. So this spring, as we go into summer, enjoy the amount of daylight that we have, but watch and listen and notice how the natural world around you is maybe responding as we're approaching the summer solstice. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Nature to Go, and we'll talk to you again next time.